webcast, we're going to talk about some real-life examples of occasions when unit conversion mistakes have led to disasters or near disasters, and take this in a chronological point of view. So the first one I have occurred in 1983. So in 1970, Canada adopted the metric system as their official system of measurement, and this jet was the first aircraft to be designed using the metric system. And in this particular flight, the crew found that the onboard fuel gauge was not working, and so they used kind of a dipstick method to determine how much fuel they loaded into the plane. And the problem is that they made a mistake when they were measuring the volume that was getting loaded into the plane, and they were trying to convert it to weight, and they mistakenly used pounds of fuel instead of kilograms, and as a result the plane was only filled with about half as much fuel as they were trying to put in. And so therefore they were in mid-flight over Manitoba, and the aircraft ran out of fuel. And luckily the pilot was able to glide the plane in and land safely, so no one was killed, but a pretty major mistake, all due to a unit conversion. In about the same year, it was a more humorous example. This was also 1983. The rock band Black Sabbath wanted to have a model of Stonehenge on stage with them for their Born Again tour. And the model that got created was so large that it didn't fit on stage. Not all of the stones fit on stage for many of the venues, and it got in the way of the band. And the story is that there was a mix-up between meters and feet, so likely also due to another unit conversion error. My next example, it was in 1994, a decade later, and this involves another aircraft. The Federal Aviation Administration received a tip that an American International Airways flight had landed, and it was 15 tons heavier than it should have been. There are regulations, rules for how heavy an aircraft can be, because that weight causes a lot of wear and tear on runways. And the crew had just made a mistake in their kilogram to pound conversion when they calculated how much cargo they could put into the plane. Then a few years later, this is a famous example, 1998, there was a joint project between NASA and the European Space Agency called SOHO, a Solar Heliospheric Observatory, and they lost this spacecraft. They lost communication because it was directed to be at an altitude that was much lower than where it should have been, and therefore it fell into the atmosphere and broke up. And the reason that this spacecraft was lost was a conversion factor error between English units to metric units. And so that simple unit conversion problem caused the spacecraft to be lost. In 1999, this is an example from the medical field, a patient received the wrong dosage of phenobarbital, which is a fairly strong sedative. So the patient was prescribed 0.5 grains of phenobarbital, but the nurse administered 0.5 grams. And so the patient received a 15,000% overdose. And it was just a confusion of the units. Grains and grams, both start with G, and the nurse confused the two. And as a result, there's been a push since that mistake to emphasize that only the metric system should be used for prescribing drugs. And then my last example is from Tokyo Disneyland. They have a Space Mountain ride, similar to the Space Mountain ride at Disneyland, Florida. And in January of 2004, an axle broke and caused the roller coaster to derail from the track. And when they investigated, they found that the wrong size part had been ordered. And the reason for that, this Space Mountain ride was first built in Florida, and it was designed using English units. They copied that design for the Tokyo theme park, but they upgraded or changed the design to use metric units when it was built in Tokyo. But when the axles were built, the replacement axles were ordered, they were ordered in English units instead of metric. And so again, a confusion between a system of units caused this mistake. So we've seen several examples here. They're in the aerospace industry, the medical industry, managing a theme park, even managing a rock group. Unit conversions are very important. They come up in all of our fields, and we need to be careful when we do them.